It is a truth universally acknowledged that humans desire happiness. However, sometimes the ways people attempt to get that happiness is not the most moral or even truly rewarding way in the end. The main method is following societal norms to find acceptance in community. One prominent example of this is the mask mandate. I'm gonna be honest, no one likes it. But in many cases, they're worn because one craves the feeling of being part of a majority and being accepted. All humans want that. But wisdom is needed in order to find and follow the norms which lead to true and lasting happiness. The use of wisdom causes one to know the difference between right and wrong. Using that knowledge to make the right decisions and take action is the more beneficial path to follow, since society promotes many temporary means to pleasure. Again, masking up is a distraction from the truth. The pressure on people by society to wear masks takes away their freedom without them even knowing it. For the most part, those who willingly wear them merely aspire to be praised by society for their conformity. Unfortunately, brief pleasures like recognition may look like lifelong joys to those who desire high status or importance in society as their main goal. For some, ignorance is bliss, but it definitely shouldn't be. Instead, people should strive to have happiness that lasts because of the application of wisdom to one's character and behavior. The British novelist Jane Austen argues that wisdom is essential to true happiness. Through making the right decisions and knowing right from wrong, one can live a better life. Unfortunately, there are multiple distractions from the good life, mainly desiring fame or status as a result of following societal norms. Austen argues this point in many of her novels, including Pride and Prejudice. In this novel, Austen's society promoted one particular norm: marriage for financial stability. A virtuous marriage should involve the desire to assist the other person in moral growth and love them unconditionally, especially at their worst. However, many people in Regency England, and sadly in modern-day America, do it because they only have their own satisfaction in mind, whether it is money or even getting rid of loneliness or chasing a feeling. Societal norms usually lead many people to become proud and vain through their overwhelming desire for recognition. Although it may seem like pride and vanity are pretty similar, there is a fine line between them. Let me elaborate. Pride is a sense of satisfaction derived from other people's view of one's accomplishments, whereas vanity is gratification based off of one's own view of herself. Many norms appeal to especially one's pride because of the honor which comes from that conformity. But instead of conforming to the norms which distract people from the good, one must reform herself by following only the norms which assist with moral growth. An example of the saddening effects of following one's hubris or extreme pride would be Pride and Prejudice's very own Charlotte Lucas. In the novel, Charlotte married a wealthy but foolish man named, and I'd like to hear some boos from the juniors and sophomores from this, Mr. Collins. That's right. She wanted a stable and secure life, and sadly never believed in her own marriage as a possibility of being for love. As a result, poor Charlotte resorted to the lesser perceived happiness of financial stability and ended up in a very unhappy and broken marriage. Mr. Collins himself was a very prideful and vain man. He married Charlotte because of the strongly advised preference of his superior, Lady Catherine de Bourgh, and because he desired the estate and titles that came with marriage. The Collins' marriage was based on vanity for both spouses. Even Charlotte herself took gratification in the expectation of happiness, which, she hoped, would proceed from her decision to marry Mr. Collins. Because of both of these people's aspirations to follow society's norms, they may have gained brief happiness, but definitely not the kind that all should strive for. Elizabeth Bennett, the main character of Pride and Prejudice, was herself involved in a situation requiring her to see the truth. By this time, almost the whole of society saw Mr. Darcy, a wealthy man who kept to himself, as intolerable. For a long time, Elizabeth too was prejudiced towards him, similarly to the common point of view. Luckily, Darcy revealed his true self in a time of crisis. Elizabeth's younger sister, Lydia, had foolishly eloped with a disreputable, deceptive man named Mr. Wickham. Darcy knew that this scandal could possibly ruin the Bennett family, so he stepped up to the plate and personally funded the marriage and dowry of the Wickhams. Darcy's profession of his generosity and kindness towards Lydia, and his forgiveness of the old rivalry between himself and Wickham, caused Elizabeth to realize her mistake in judgment and her own pride. According to Elizabeth herself, quote, "But vanity, not love, has been my folly. On the very beginning of our acquaintance, I have courted prepossession and ignorance, and driven reason away where either were concerned. Pride and vanity cause moral blindness and prevent one from knowing herself." Even Mary, Elizabeth's younger sister, has quite a few things to say in Pride and Prejudice about morality, but unfortunately has quite a prideful character herself. Luckily, she has a great definition for pride and vanity. Quote, "Pride," observed Mary, who piqued herself upon the solidity of her reflections, "is a very common failing, I believe. By all that I have ever read, I am convinced that it is very common indeed, that few of us who do not cherish a feeling of self-complacency on the score of some quality or another, real or imaginary. Vanity and pride are different things, though the words are often used synonymously. A person may be proud without being vain. Pride relates more to our opinion of ourselves, vanity to what we would have others think of us," end quote. Instead of basing one's life off of these two vices, wisdom must be employed in order to live the good life. Wisdom is a treasure which is discovered through learning from past mistakes. Success also plays a great role, but through mistakes we can learn consequences and swiftly avoid them. Clearly, the consequences which result from making bad decisions are not very attractive to anyone who makes them, so one will naturally turn towards morality and growth in wisdom. Many societal norms are closely followed by the populace, but let's consider the road less traveled. Morality is mostly ignored and not even considered because it is the more difficult path to follow. People don't really consider immorality as an obligation, but morality is considered as an unnecessary thing to do. However, it is the road which leads to true happiness and is all the more rewarding because of the struggle than the easy immoral path. An opponent may argue that all societal norms are good because they can benefit people through common courtesy and good manners. Despite this view, people must look for the norms which can truly grow them in virtue instead of making this assumption. Growth and influence on one's character begins at home. People become how they are raised to be, whether virtuous or worldly, through the influence of their parental units. Then they enter society with the convictions acquired from their foundations and are influenced by society in either beneficial or detrimental ways. The future of a person depends on their convictions and how they develop over time. If a conviction is founded in virtue, it acts as a sound foundation and gives one strength to resist temptation. Through the wisdom and convictions gained from experience, true happiness is possible, according to Aristotle himself. Quote, "Just as health produces health, so wisdom produces happiness. For wisdom, being a part of the whole of virtue, makes one happy by being possessed and being active," end quote. If one behaves wisely and virtuously, they're deserving of praise and should acknowledge their own actions in moderation, some may say. Some do not even see vanity as a fault in a way, because it is a good idea to consider if other people's opinions of oneself are reasonably founded. Through observing outside opinions, one can see faults in her actions and be led to true wisdom through making better decisions. True, society does have its benefits, and it's great to be courteous. However, the other side needs to be seen. Image is everything, both in Austin's society and modern-day America's society. Because people may convey deceptions about their characters, it is very important to see through them. But before one can see through the illusions of others, she must first know herself and be so strongly founded in her beliefs that nothing whatsoever can delude them. If one is truly virtuous, she will not heed a single rival to what she knows is the truth. Learning from mistakes strengthens one's morality, and one's free will and convictions are the game changer when it comes to judging anything outside of oneself. If one desires to live a good and happy life, she must learn that wisdom comes from dealing with mistakes in a virtuous manner. Since wisdom is the application of truth to everyday life, Those who pursue it have the ability to see through deception and become virtuous themselves. To possess wisdom in the long run means seeing clearly and with a moral mindset, especially when observing one's own behavior. The satisfaction of knowing oneself far outranks the brief pleasures promoted by following society's norms. It is essential to see that if one knows and uses her convictions in decision-making, they become moral guidelines incorruptible by immoral expectations of society. Moral convictions lead one to become an admirable example to her observers, which helps others to see the importance of morality in their own lives. So, let me ask you, if wisdom is used to deal with experiences in a beneficial way, will you choose to use it or abuse it? Will you give in to the peer pressure constantly surrounding you and pushing you towards wrongdoing and carelessness? Or will you pursue the truth and wisdom in all things and become truly happy and virtuous? Either let your passions run away with you or let wisdom and virtue guide you. I leave the decision up to you. Thank you for your time.